Hey, Woodcutters, TopSaw here. Today I'm going to give an update on the 1972 FJ55. Just really replacing some things that are slightly worn from 50 years of use. Going to replace, I think those are original shocks, some of the tie rod ends down there, and a steering stabilizer. Even though this channel is all things wood, I do have a 72 Landcruiser that I do occasional videos on, and I get comments to keep updating them. So this is 72 FJ55. In this video I'm going to replace the 4 shocks. I also got new tie rod ends that I'm going to replace as well, but I think I'm actually going to do that in another video because that turned into quite a project. In addition to the shocks, and I got rubber boots to cover up the pistons, I'm also going to replace the steering stabilizer with an old man Emu steering stabilizer. The old one's the original one on there, 50 years old, and this should make it a lot easier. This is a good friend of mine who's actually helping me out with this, so he has the lift, which is really nice. Actually not helping me out, he's actually doing all the work. Looking under the truck here, you can see there's on the top of the screen the stock original steering stabilizer, and that's an aftermarket one that was probably added in 1973. I think those shocks are original too. So I'm going to replace the steering stabilizer with this. I got it from Spectre Off-Road in California. That's a great organization. You just talk to a really informed guy over the phone, kind of talk through all of it, and then there it is 2 days later on your front doorstep. So we're going to put in this steering stabilizer and see how it goes. Here's the old one after it's been taken out, and it's interesting that this old one actually had ball and sockets, kind of like a shoulder blade there, and also grease fittings. That's probably why it lasted 50 years. And even though it's really old, you can tell that grease really helped it keep moving its whole life. So even though it looks a little worn out, it was still doing the job 50 years later. The old one has these ball fittings, and the new one does not. Here's the new steering stabilizer installed, and then as you're moving the wheels back and forth, you can see it's really just that axle turning inside of it. And it is a little bit off angle, so you can see why it would need a ball fitting, but I'm sure the guys got it right where I ordered it from, and it was a perfect length and it lined up perfectly. So I think it is the right tool or the right part, and they just do it a lot differently now. You can see it going back and forth with the wheels getting turned and the steering components moving, and how nice that install was. Pretty easy. Alright, time to replace the shocks. Again, I think these are actually the originals from 1972. I'm thinking new shocks on here is really going to make a big difference. So this is popping the shocks off. Maybe I'll turn up the speed here a little bit so it doesn't seem like it takes that long. And then popping them off the bottom, and then going to take them off the top, and then get the old shocks out and put all the new shocks in. The rear shocks and the front shocks are different, so there's 2 sets of 2 different shocks. I don't know if you get them at your local Napa store, but I did get these at Spectre. These are actually aftermarket shocks. There aren't any OEM shocks available, but hopefully these aftermarket shocks will work well. They had great reviews. So here we are taking the shocks out, and you can see they're pretty worn, but they're still working. Bushings are completely worn out there and cracked. Not that much shock left in the shocks. They were still working. Amazing, you know, how well made they were 50 years ago that they're still working. Okay, and the new shock's going in right there. First on the bottom. Remember to put the boots in. The bushing on the top is actually kind of long, and the stud's a little short. So it barely makes it through, not enough really to get the nut on there. So using the channel locks, get a little compression or pull it compression on the bushing, get it through to get the nut started, and then able to drive the nut down on there. New shock's going in really with no trouble at all. I do like the rubber boots covering up the piston. And then here's in the front on the left, the new shock. Looks pretty good. On the back here, one issue on the back here was that shock was a little bit close to the exhaust system, which is pretty recently replaced. But you can see how that rubber boot's a little close to the exhaust. There's the other rear shock with the boot on it, looking pretty good. So if you're new to the channel, I'll put some links to the other Landcruiser FJ55 videos, how I got this truck, why it's so special to me. I'll put a link in the description, and also maybe I'll put a little card up here to click to it. So this is actually afterwards, driving it home. It feels fantastic. The new shocks made an unbelievable difference in the way the whole thing handles, super smooth. It is the original 3-speed, which is almost like an automatic once you get to about 5-10 miles an hour. Third gear is really good from about 10 to 65. Okay, if you have any comments, I'd really like to hear them below on the suspension or the truck. Also on the steering stabilizer. I appreciate you watching. If you're new to the channel, think about subscribing.